Little girl, this isn't a playground. These symbols aren't decorations for you to scribble over. Dr. Richard Pemberton's voice echoed through the empty Hartwell University classroom as he discovered 12-year-old Zara Williams standing at the blackboard, her small hand clutching a piece of chalk. It was 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. While her father, Jerome, mopped floors in the hallway, Zara had wandered into the mathematics department's most prestigious lecture hall. The blackboard displayed what professors called the Hartwell Conjecture, a problem that had stumped brilliant minds for over a decade. But Zara wasn't just looking at it. She was solving it. Dr. Pemberton didn't bother to examine her work. Instead, he grabbed the eraser and swept it across the board with theatrical disgust, as if cleaning dirt from expensive furniture. Each stroke erased hours of careful calculation. Zara watched her breakthrough disappear into chalk dust. Have you ever watched someone's potential get erased right before your eyes? Hartwell University's mathematics department wasn't just prestigious. It was a fortress of academic superiority. Located in Chicago's most expensive district, the limestone buildings housed some of the world's brightest mathematical minds. Students paid $50,000 a year just for the privilege of sitting in these classrooms. At the center of it all stood the Hartwell Conjecture. For 12 years, this single mathematical problem had defeated every attempt at a solution. Graduate students had written entire dissertations trying to crack it. Professors from MIT, Stanford, and Cambridge had traveled here specifically to tackle it. All had failed. The university had even established a $50,000 prize fund, the Pemberton Prize, for anyone who could solve it. Named after Dr. Richard Pemberton, the department head who had spent 3 decades building his reputation as the man who was never wrong in public. But tonight, while the academic elite slept in their comfortable homes, Jerome Williams pushed his cleaning cart through these hallowed halls. He'd worked the night shift for 8 years, invisible to the professors who barely acknowledged his existence during the day. Jerome brought his daughter Zara with him during school breaks. She was homeschooled, brilliant in ways that traditional education couldn't contain. While other 12-year-olds played video games, Zara found puzzles in everything: patterns in floor tiles, sequences in building numbers, equations hidden in everyday life. The mathematics department fascinated her most. She'd spend hours studying the equations professors left on whiteboards, working through problems in her head while her father cleaned around her. The janitor's daughter, teaching herself calculus from academic scraps. Most professors barely noticed her. When they did, they'd smile politely and ask if she was lost. The security guards knew her as Jerome's kid. Harmless enough, as long as she stayed quiet and out of the way. Dr. Pemberton noticed her differently. Every interaction carried a subtle edge, a reminder that this wasn't her world. When Zara accidentally bumped into him last month, he'd brushed off his jacket as if she'd contaminated it. When she asked Jerome about a mathematical symbol, Pemberton had suggested they keep family conversations in the hallway. These weren't overt acts of racism. They were dead by 1,000 cuts. The raised eyebrow when Jerome needed badge access. The assumption that any mess near them was their fault. The way conversations stopped when they entered a room, then resumed in lower tones. Jerome felt it too, but he needed this job. Single father, high school diploma, raising a gifted daughter in a world that barely saw her potential. He swallowed each slight, smiled politely, and focused on providing stability for Zara. The department operated on an unspoken hierarchy. Full professors at the top, then associate professors, assistant professors, graduate students, undergraduates. Somewhere far below, invisible and essential, came the support staff. People like Jerome existed to maintain the environment where real intellectual work happened. Dr. Pemberton ruled this kingdom with academic authority earned through decades of publications, conferences, and carefully cultivated influence. His upcoming book, The Limits of Mathematical Possibility, would cement his legacy as the man who proved some problems were simply unsolvable. The annual mathematics symposium was 3 days away. This year's event would be special, Pemberton planned to officially declare the Hartwell Conjecture retired. After 12 years of failed attempts, he would demonstrate mathematically why the problem couldn't be solved. 500 of the world's top mathematicians would attend in person. Thousands more would watch the live stream. It would be Pemberton's moment of ultimate triumph, the capstone to a brilliant career. The university had already prepared press releases. "Hartwell Professor proves the impossible," read the headline. Media interviews were scheduled. The book deal was finalized. Everything was perfect, except for one small detail. While Dr. Pemberton prepared his presentation about mathematical impossibility, a 12-year-old girl had been quietly working on the same problem. Night after night, while he slept, she filled notebook pages with calculations. She approached the conjecture not with advanced degrees or prestigious credentials, but with something more dangerous, a mind unconstrained by assumptions about what couldn't be done. Zara saw patterns where others saw chaos. She found shortcuts where others built elaborate detours. Most importantly, she wasn't afraid to be wrong, so she wasn't afraid to be right either. The stage was set. The academic establishment versus a janitor's daughter. Reputation versus truth. Credentials versus capability. But would anyone listen to her long enough to discover what she'd found? The departmental meeting was supposed to be closed to outsiders. But when you're invisible enough, people forget you're there. Zara sat in the hallway outside conference room 204, supposedly doing homework while her father cleaned the adjacent offices. Through the slightly open door, she could hear Dr. Pemberton addressing 15 of the department's most senior faculty members. "After 12 years of futile attempts, it's time we acknowledge reality," Pemberton's voice carried clearly through the quiet hallway. "The Hartwell Conjecture has defeated our brightest doctoral candidates, visiting scholars from Harvard and Oxford, even our most seasoned researchers." He clicked to his next slide. Zara could see the projection on the far wall, a complex mathematical proof filled with symbols and equations. "My comprehensive analysis demonstrates why this problem exists in what I call the mathematical impossibility zone," Pemberton continued. "Some questions simply have no answers. The upcoming symposium will be the perfect venue to officially retire this conjecture and redirect our department's resources toward more productive pursuits." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. Department heads nodded sagely. This was academic consensus in action, the collective wisdom of experts reaching a logical conclusion. But Zara had been studying that same proof for weeks. She'd seen Dr. Pemberton's preliminary work on various whiteboards throughout the building, and she'd noticed something that made her stomach tighten with excitement and disbelief. He was wrong, not just slightly off or missing a minor detail. Fundamentally, catastrophically wrong. In his fourth assumption, Dr. Pemberton treated variable k as a constant when it should remain dynamic across the integral boundary. This single error cascaded through his entire impossibility proof, invalidating 12 pages of sophisticated mathematics. Zara had discovered this 3 days ago while working through the problem herself. She'd triple-checked her reasoning, tested it against simpler examples, even worked backwards from the conclusion. Every approach confirmed the same thing. The Hartwell conjecture wasn't impossible. It was just misunderstood. The meeting continued inside. Dr. Pemberton outlined his plan for the symposium presentation, the media strategy, and the book tour that would follow. His colleagues offered congratulations on solving the unsolvable problem by proving it couldn't be solved. Zara felt a strange mixture of excitement and terror. She possessed knowledge that could change everything. But she was a 12-year-old black girl, the janitor's daughter, sitting in a hallway where she wasn't supposed to be listening. When the meeting ended, faculty members filed out past her. Most didn't acknowledge her presence. Dr. Pemberton glanced down with mild irritation, as if wondering why furniture had been left in the corridor. That evening, as Jerome finished his rounds, Zara couldn't contain herself any longer. "Dad?" she whispered, pulling out her notebook filled with calculations. I think Dr. Pemberton made a mistake about the Hartwell thing. Jerome paused his mopping. What kind of mistake, baby girl? He says it can't be solved, but look. Zara showed him her work, explaining in simple terms how the professor's proof fell apart when you accounted for the variable's changing value. Jerome studied his daughter's face. He'd seen this look before, the quiet confidence that came when Zara had worked through a problem completely. She wasn't guessing or hoping. She knew. Are you sure about this? He asked gently. I've checked it 17 different ways, Dad. He's wrong. The next morning, Jerome mentioned his daughter's observation to Marcus Carter, a friendly graduate student who sometimes chatted with the cleaning staff. Marcus initially smiled politely, until Jerome showed him Zara's notebook. Within hours, word had spread through the department's informal network. A janitor's daughter thought she'd found an error in Dr. Pemberton's work. When the story reached Dr. Pemberton himself, his reaction was swift and public. Would a respected professor take corrections from a child seriously, or would pride turn this into something much bigger? Dr. Pemberton's response came during the next day's faculty lunch meeting. Word of the janitor's daughter situation had reached enough people that he felt compelled to address it publicly. I understand there's been some amateur commentary on my recent work, he announced to the gathered professors, his tone carrying just enough amusement to signal how seriously he took the matter. Perhaps this presents a teachable moment about the difference between professional mathematics and playground arithmetic. He gestured toward the conference room's whiteboard. I'll demonstrate my impossibility proof one more time, step by step, so there can be no confusion about the rigor involved. 15 faculty members watched as Dr. Pemberton began writing his equations. Each step was methodical, precise, designed to showcase the sophisticated reasoning that had eluded lesser minds for over a decade. Unknown to the professors, Jerome was cleaning the adjacent hallway, and unknown to Jerome, Zara had followed him to work early that day, curious about how the department would respond to her father's disclosure. She pressed herself against the wall beside the partially open door, notebook clutched in her small hands. As you can see, Dr. Pemberton continued, filling the whiteboard with complex formulas, the conjecture creates what I call a mathematical paradox loop. Every attempted solution eventually contradicts its own initial assumptions. He pointed to his fourth line of reasoning. Here, we treat variable k as our boundary constant, which allows us to demonstrate the impossibility through integration by parts. Zara's heart began racing. There it was, the exact error she'd identified. Dr. Pemberton was treating k as fixed when it actually needed to change values as it crossed the integral boundary. It was like trying to measure a growing plant with a ruler that shrunk at the same rate. The professors nodded appreciatively. Dr. Sarah Carter from Stanford, visiting for the semester, asked a clarifying question about the seventh step. Dr. Mills from MIT complimented the elegance of the approach. This is why, Dr. Pemberton concluded with satisfaction, we can definitively state that the Hartwell Conjecture belongs in the category of mathematical impossibilities. No solution exists because no solution can exist. Applause filled the room. Several professors began discussing the implications for their own research areas. During the break, as faculty members chatted over coffee and pastries, Zara made a decision that would change everything. She slipped into the conference room. The whiteboard still displayed Dr. Pemberton's proof in all its intimidating complexity. Zara approached it slowly, her reflection dwarfed by the towering equations. She picked up a red marker from the tray. Starting at Dr. Pemberton's fourth assumption, she began to write, not erasing his work, but adding annotations in the margins. Small corrections that revealed the fundamental flaw running through his entire argument. First, she circled the problematic k variable. Then, in neat handwriting, she showed how its value needed to shift when crossing the boundary condition. Next, she demonstrated what happened to the rest of the proof when you corrected this single error. The impossibility disappeared. The mathematical paradox resolved itself. The path to a solution became visible. When Dr. Pemberton returned from the break, expecting to field a few more admiring questions, he found a 12-year-old girl standing at his whiteboard. His pristine proof now bore red annotations that transformed its meaning entirely. "Excuse me," he said sharply. "What exactly do you think you're doing?" The room fell silent. 15 distinguished professors turned to stare at the small intruder who had dared to mark up their colleagues' work. Zara looked up, marker still in her hand. "I think you made an error in step 4, she said quietly. "You're treating K like it stays the same, but it has to change when it crosses this boundary here." She pointed to her corrections. "When you fix that, the whole impossibility thing goes away." "See?" Dr. Pemberton's face flushed red. "Young lady, this is a private faculty meeting. You have no business." "But is she right?" Dr. Carter interrupted, moving closer to examine the whiteboard. For several long moments, the room was completely quiet, except for the sound of Dr. Carter's pen scratching against paper as she worked through Zara's corrections. Dr. Mills joined her, then Dr. Rodriguez from the algebra department. One by one, the professors began verifying the 12-year-old's mathematical reasoning. "This is actually correct," Dr. Carter said slowly, disbelief evident in her voice. "The variable substitution she's suggesting here, it does resolve the paradox." Dr. Mills looked up from his calculations. "Richard, I think she's found a genuine error in your foundational assumption." The room erupted in whispers. Phones appeared as professors began taking pictures of the annotated whiteboard. Someone mentioned posting to the mathematics forums online. Dr. Pemberton stared at his life's work, now covered in red corrections made by a child who shouldn't even be in the building. His carefully constructed proof, the foundation for his upcoming book, his symposium presentation, his entire professional legacy, had been dismantled by a janitor's daughter using high school algebra. "This is," he stammered, then caught himself. Years of academic training kicked in. Never show weakness in public. Never admit fundamental error, especially not to a child. "A lucky guess," he said finally, his voice strained but controlled. "Any undergraduate student could have spotted that." Eventually. These kinds of computational oversights are common in preliminary work, but the damage was done. Every professor in that room now knew that Dr. Pemberton's impossibility proof was wrong. More importantly, they knew that a 12-year-old had proven it wrong using mathematical reasoning they could all verify and understand. Dr. Carter turned to Zara with genuine curiosity. "Have you worked through the entire conjecture or just identified this error?" Zara clutched her notebook tighter. I think I might have found a way to solve the whole thing." The silence that followed was deafening. What would happen when word of this spread beyond the conference room walls? By 6 p.m. that evening, the story had escaped the confines of Hartwell University. Dr. Carter had mentioned it to a colleague at Stanford during their regular video call. Dr. Mills texted his research partner at MIT. Dr. Rodriguez posted a cryptic message on academic Twitter. "Witnessed something extraordinary today." Sometimes wisdom comes from the most unexpected sources. The mathematics community is smaller than most people realize. Within hours, professors across 3 time zones were buzzing about the same rumor. A 12-year-old had found an error in Richard Pemberton's famous impossibility proof. The story grew with each retelling. By midnight, mathematics forums were flooded with speculation. Was this legitimate? Could a child really have spotted something that PhD mathematicians had missed? What did this mean for the upcoming symposium? Mathematics Today, the field's most widely read publication, reached out to Hartwell's Media Relations Department for comment. The Chicago Tribune's science reporter started making phone calls. Academic blogs began crafting headlines. Child prodigy challenges famous professor. 12-year-old versus mathematical establishment. Janitor's daughter shakes academic world. The story had everything viral content needed: an underdog, an authority figure, intellectual drama, and the possibility of watching someone powerful get proven wrong in public. Dr. Pemberton felt the walls closing in. His phone buzzed constantly with calls from colleagues, reporters, and curious academics. His carefully planned symposium presentation, designed to showcase his intellectual authority, was becoming a potential public humiliation. But Richard Pemberton hadn't survived 30 years in academia by backing down from challenges. If this child wanted to play in the professional arena, he would treat her like any other opponent. At 9 a.m. the next morning, he called an emergency press conference. "Recent rumors about my research have created unnecessary confusion," he announced to the assembled reporters and faculty members. "In the interest of academic transparency, I'm extending a formal invitation." He paused for dramatic effect. "If Miss Williams believes she can solve what our finest minds cannot, she is welcome to present her findings at this weekend's mathematics symposium. Let the global mathematical community judge the validity of her claims." The challenge was masterfully crafted. Publicly, it appeared generous and fair-minded. Privately, it was designed to destroy a 12-year-old's confidence in front of the world's most prestigious mathematicians. The original symposium had expected 500 attendees. Within 24 hours of Pemberton's announcement, registration swelled to over 1,000. Universities began arranging satellite viewing parties. Mathematics departments worldwide cleared their schedules. The live stream, originally projected to draw 5,000 viewers, was now trending toward 50,000. Someone had created a hashtag Zara vs. Pemberton. Betting pools emerged on academic forums, though most money favored the established professor. Additional pressure came from unexpected sources. Dr. Harrison Mills flew in from MIT specifically to observe. Dr. Sarah Carter extended her Stanford visit to witness the confrontation. Distinguished professors from Cambridge, Oxford, and the Sorbonne confirmed their attendance. The media attention intensified everything. Camera crews appeared on campus. Reporters tried to interview Jerome during his shift. Social media influencers who normally covered celebrity gossip began posting about the math battle everyone's talking about. But the escalation created new rules that heavily favored Dr. Pemberton's experience. Zara wouldn't just need to identify errors anymore. She would need to present a formal mathematical proof, complete with rigorous documentation and peer-reviewable methodology. She would face a 45-minute time limit, followed by an unrestricted question and answer session with hostile experts. Most challenging of all, she would need to do this while 1,000 of the world's most accomplished mathematicians watched her every move, many of them skeptical that a child could contribute anything meaningful to their field. The stakes had transformed completely. This was no longer about a simple calculation error. Zara's performance would either validate her mathematical intuition or publicly humiliate her in front of the global academic community. Dr. Pemberton's reputation, meanwhile, faced a different kind of pressure. If he lost to a 12-year-old, his career would become a cautionary tale about academic arrogance. But if he won, as everyone expected, he would be seen as the distinguished professor who graciously educated a misguided child. Jerome watched the mounting circus with growing concern. His quiet, brilliant daughter had become the center of an international controversy that could change their lives forever. "You don't have to do this, baby girl," he told Zara as they sat in their small apartment, surrounded by news articles about the upcoming confrontation. "Nobody would blame you for walking away." Zara looked up from her notebook, where she'd been refining her approach to the Hartwell Conjecture. "Dad, what if I'm right? What if I can really solve it?" "Then you solve it," Jerome said gently. "But you solve it for the right reasons. Not to prove anything to people who already made up their minds about you." Outside their window, Chicago hummed with its usual energy. Inside their home, a 12-year-old girl prepared to face the biggest intellectual challenge of her life. But did she have any idea what she was truly up against? 72 hours until the symposium. Zara's world transformed overnight. The quiet girl who used to solve problems in empty hallways was now the center of a mathematical storm that reached every corner of the academic universe. Her preparation began in the most unlikely place, the university's janitor supply closet. Jerome had cleared out a small space where Zara could work undisturbed, away from the cameras and curious professors who now seemed to lurk around every corner. Surrounded by mops and cleaning supplies, she spread her notebooks across a makeshift desk. The Hartwell Conjecture stared back at her in all its intimidating complexity. But Zara had something most mathematicians lacked. She wasn't afraid of it. Day 1. The Foundation. While Dr. Pemberton refined his counter-arguments in his prestigious corner office, Zara worked by the light of a single desk lamp. She knew her approach was unconventional. Instead of building elaborate mathematical scaffolding like trained academics, she used pattern recognition and intuitive leaps. "Think of it like music, Dad," she explained to Jerome during his dinner break. "Most people try to play every note perfectly, but sometimes you can hear the melody by skipping the complicated parts." Her method involved identifying recurring patterns within the conjecture's structure. Where others saw random complexity, she found hidden rhythms. It was mathematical jazz, improvisation guided by deep understanding of the underlying harmonies. But her confidence wavered when she attempted to translate her intuitive solution into formal mathematical language. Academic presentations required specific terminology, rigorous proofs, and step-by-step logic that left no room for interpretative leaps. Mini loss. Her first practice presentation lasted 12 minutes. She needed 48 hours remaining. Dr. Elena Vasquez appeared at the supply closet door during the second night. The visiting professor from Universidad Nacional had been quietly observing the controversy, and something about Zara's approach intrigued her. "May I see your work?" she asked gently. Zara hesitated, then showed Dr. Vasquez her notebooks. Page after page of calculations, pattern analyses, and geometric visualizations that looked nothing like traditional mathematical proofs. Dr. Vasquez studied the work for 30 minutes without speaking. Finally, she looked up with something approaching wonder. "This is remarkable. You're solving the conjecture by treating it as a dynamic system instead of a static equation. I've never seen this approach before." Mini win. For the first time, a credentialed mathematician validated Zara's methodology. Dr. Vasquez offered discreet guidance. Not coaching, that would violate academic ethics, but clarification about formal presentation requirements and mathematical notation conventions. 36 hours remaining. The online harassment began on mathematics forums and social media. Anonymous accounts posted brutal commentary. Child exploitation disguised as academic discourse. This is what happens when we lower standards for publicity. Pemberton should be ashamed for entertaining this circus. Someone's using that kid to make fools of real mathematicians. Jerome tried to shield Zara from the worst comments, but she saw enough to understand the stakes. Half the mathematical world wanted her to succeed as an inspiring underdog story. The other half wanted her to fail as a lesson about staying in your lane. Mini loss. Zara spent 3 hours reading criticism instead of preparing, shaking her confidence. 24 hours remaining. The technical presentation setup became another obstacle. The symposium required PowerPoint slides, laser pointers, and wireless microphones, tools Zara had never used for academic presentations. During her practice run in the actual auditorium, everything went wrong. The slides wouldn't advance properly. Her voice barely carried through the sound system. The massive screen made her handwriting look childish and unprofessional. "I can't do this," she whispered to Jerome after the disastrous rehearsal. "I understand the math, but I don't understand their world." Mini win. Dr. Vasquez suggested a different approach. Forget technology. Use the blackboard. Show them your thinking in real time, the way mathematicians have done for centuries. 18 hours remaining. Word leaked that Dr. Pemberton's allies were spreading doubt about ghostwriting and coaching. Professors whispered about the impossibility of a 12-year-old developing such sophisticated mathematical reasoning without adult assistance. The accusations stung because they contained a grain of perceived truth. Zara had learned from textbooks, online resources, and overheard lectures. In traditional academic terms, she was entirely self-taught, which made her insights seem suspicious to people who equated credentials with capability. Mini-loss. 3 professors publicly questioned the authenticity of her work. 12 hours remaining. Unable to sleep, Zara practiced her presentation for an audience of night shift janitors in the university cafeteria. Carlos, Maria, and Dennis didn't understand advanced mathematics, but they understood Zara. "Explain it like you're teaching my 10-year-old granddaughter," Maria suggested. This became Zara's breakthrough moment. Instead of trying to sound like a professor, she decided to sound like herself. Her presentation transformed from academic jargon into clear, passionate explanation. Mini-win. She could make complex concepts accessible without dumbing them down. 6 hours remaining. Jerome found Zara in the supply closet at 3 a.m., surrounded by crumpled papers and empty coffee cups. She'd been working for 18 straight hours, refining her approach one final time. "Baby girl, you need some sleep." "I can't, Dad." "What if I forget something important? What if I make a mistake in front of all those people? What if they're right and I'm just a kid who got lucky once?" Jerome sat beside his daughter among the cleaning supplies. "You know what I learned in 12 years of watching professors? The smartest ones aren't afraid to say, 'I don't know.' The dangerous ones are afraid to say, 'I was wrong.'" He pointed to her notebooks filled with corrections, revisions, and alternative approaches. "Look at all this work. You're not afraid to be wrong, so you're not afraid to be right either. That's your superpower. 3 hours remaining." As dawn broke over Chicago, Zara made her final preparations. She organized her key insights onto index cards, not as a script, but as guideposts for spontaneous explanation. She practiced her opening statement one last time. The social pressure cooker had reached its peak. Mathematics forums buzzed with predictions. Betting pools favored Dr. Pemberton 7-1. News crews set up outside the university. Academic Twitter exploded with commentary from professors worldwide. But in the quiet of the supply closet, surrounded by the tools of her father's honest work, Zara felt something unexpected. Peace. She understood mathematics. She could explain her reasoning. Whatever happened next would happen because she'd earned the right to try. It's time. Jerome walked his daughter toward the auditorium where 1,000 mathematicians waited to judge her work. Neither of them spoke. There was nothing left to say. In 2 hours, the world would know whether a janitor's daughter could solve what professors couldn't. But first, she had to survive the biggest intellectual performance of her life. Was she ready for what waited behind those auditorium doors? 1 hour before the symposium began, Dr. Elena Vasquez made a discovery that changed everything. She'd been reviewing her email archive, searching for references to the Hartwell Conjecture for a paper she was writing about mathematical problem-solving approaches. What she found made her blood run cold. Buried in her university account was a forwarded message from 14 months ago. The original sender, Dr. Richard Pemberton. The recipient, Dr. James Morrison at Princeton. The subject line, confidential, potential issue with HC proof. Dr. Vasquez read the email chain with growing disbelief. Morrison, need your discreet opinion on attached analysis. Found potential error in my impossibility framework. Variable K behavior is more complex than initially calculated. Could invalidate the entire approach. Implications for book deal and symposium timeline significant. Thoughts? Morrison's response was equally damning. Richard, you're right to be concerned. The error cascades through your foundational assumptions, suggests the conjecture might actually be solvable using an alternative approach. Recommend revisiting before publication. Pemberton's final message in the chain: agree. We'll bury this analysis pending further review. Too much at stake to rush corrections. Book deadlines and symposium commitments make timing problematic. Dr. Vasquez stared at her screen in horror. Dr. Pemberton hadn't just made an error. He'd discovered his own error over a year ago and deliberately concealed it. The man who was about to publicly humiliate a 12-year-old child had known all along that his impossibility proof was fundamentally flawed. The Hartwell conjecture wasn't unsolvable. Pemberton simply hadn't figured out how to solve it, and his pride wouldn't let him admit the mistake that undermined his entire academic reputation. This wasn't about mathematical disagreement anymore. It was about deliberate academic dishonesty. Dr. Vasquez grabbed her laptop and headed for the auditorium. Zara needed to know what she was really up against. But when she arrived at the building, security had already locked down the presentation area. No unauthorized access, no last-minute disruptions. Dr. Pemberton's influence had ensured complete control over the symposium environment. Through the lobby windows, she could see Zara in the preparation room, making final notes on her index cards. The girl had no idea she was about to face not just intellectual challenge, but deliberate sabotage from a professor willing to destroy a child's confidence to protect his own legacy. The stakes had shifted completely. If Zara succeeded, she wouldn't just solve a mathematical problem. She would expose one of the academic world's most respected figures as a fraud. But if she failed, Dr. Pemberton would cement his reputation while crushing the dreams of a brilliant young mind who had dared to challenge his authority. Dr. Vasquez pressed her phone against the glass, desperately trying to signal Zara about the conspiracy she was walking into. Would justice prevail, or would a 12-year-old girl become the casualty of academic corruption? 15 minutes before her presentation, Zara discovered that someone had systematically destroyed her preparation materials. Her carefully organized index cards were missing from the preparation room table where she'd left them. The backup notebooks she'd stored in her father's cleaning cart had vanished. Even the spare pencils and erasers she'd packed were gone. But the cruelest blow came when she approached the presentation computer. The PowerPoint file she'd spent hours creating as a backup option displayed an error message. File corrupted. Cannot open. Someone had accessed her presentation materials and eliminated every safety net she'd built. "Dad, everything's gone," she whispered to Jerome, who'd been waiting outside the preparation room. Her voice carried the hollow tone of someone whose worst fears had just materialized. Jerome's jaw tightened as he surveyed the empty table. "Baby girl, we both know this wasn't an accident." Through the preparation room window, they could see Dr. Pemberton in the corridor, greeting distinguished colleagues with confident handshakes and warm smiles. He appeared completely relaxed, like a man certain of victory. The auditorium was filling rapidly. Over 1,000 mathematicians had traveled from around the world to witness this confrontation. The live stream viewer count had reached 75,000 and climbing. News cameras captured every moment. "Maybe this is a sign," Zara said, slumping into a chair. "Maybe I was never supposed to be here." That's when Dr. Pemberton made his masterpiece move. He knocked gently on the preparation room door, his expression a perfect mask of concerned mentorship. "Miss Williams, I hope you're feeling prepared. Though I must say there have been some concerning developments." He produced a manila folder with theatrical precision. "It's come to my attention that several graduate students have been sharing advanced mathematical techniques with you over the past week. While I'm sure your intentions were innocent, academic integrity requires full disclosure of all assistance received." The accusation was devastating in its subtlety. He wasn't directly calling her a cheater, but he was planting doubt about the authenticity of her work in front of anyone within earshot. "I haven't received any help," Zara protested weakly. Of course, Dr. Pemberton replied with patronizing kindness. But appearances matter in academic settings. Perhaps we should postpone your presentation until we can verify your sources. I'm sure the audience would understand the need for proper verification procedures. Jerome stepped forward, recognizing the trap. She earned her place here fair and square. Indeed, Dr. Pemberton smiled coldly. Though I wonder if Miss Williams truly comprehends the magnitude of what she's attempting. These distinguished colleagues have dedicated their entire careers to mathematical research. Perhaps it would be kinder to spare her the inevitable disappointment. The psychological warfare was perfect. Every word was designed to make Zara question herself, to make her feel small and out of place among the academic giants waiting in the auditorium. Zara felt the walls closing in, no preparation materials, public doubts about her integrity, a hostile opponent who controlled every aspect of the environment, and 1,000 brilliant minds waiting to judge her performance. "I can't do this," she whispered, tears starting to form. "Maybe they're right, Dad. Maybe I don't belong here." She stood up and walked toward the door, ready to surrender before the battle even began. The weight of expectations, the missing materials, the accusations, everything had become too much for a 12-year-old to bear. Jerome watched his daughter prepare to give up on her dreams. For a moment that felt like eternity. It seemed like Dr. Pemberton had won through pure intimidation. But then Jerome remembered something his own father had told him years ago. "Baby girl, you know what you know. These walls, these degrees, these titles, they don't make truth. You do." He knelt beside his daughter in the hallway, speaking quietly but firmly. "Math doesn't care who your daddy is or what zip code you're from. 2 + 2 is 4, whether you're in the penthouse or the basement. You've got something they don't have. You're not afraid to be wrong, so you're not afraid to be right either." Zara looked up through her tears. In her father's eyes, she saw unwavering faith in her abilities. "You don't need those cards or computers, baby girl. You need what's in here." Jerome tapped gently on her chest. "Show them what understanding actually looks like." Would a 12-year-old find the courage to face 1,000 skeptics with nothing but her own mathematical intuition? The auditorium fell silent as Zara walked onto the stage. 1,000 of the world's most distinguished mathematicians filled every seat. Professors from Harvard, MIT, Stanford, Cambridge, and Oxford leaned forward in anticipation. The live stream counter showed 89,000 viewers worldwide. Camera crews from major networks captured every moment. This wasn't just an academic presentation anymore. It was a public trial where a 12-year-old black girl would either prove her extraordinary claims or face humiliation in front of the global mathematical community. Dr. Pemberton stepped to the podium first, his voice carrying the authority of 3 decades in academia. "Ladies and gentlemen, we gather today for an unusual circumstance. Our youngest presenter will now attempt to solve what has challenged our finest minds for over a decade." He gestured toward Zara with calculated condescension. "While I admire youthful enthusiasm, I trust our community will apply the same rigorous standards we demand of all mathematical claims. Let us give Miss Williams our patient attention." Scattered applause filled the vast space. Some professors smiled indulgently, as if watching a child's piano recital. Others appeared skeptical, already preparing their critiques. Zara approached the massive blackboard that dominated the front wall. No PowerPoint slides, no laser pointer, no notes. Just chalk and the mathematical intuition that had brought her to this moment. The auditorium held its collective breath. "Dr. Pemberton says the Hartwell Conjecture is impossible to solve," Zara began, her young voice steady despite the magnitude of the moment. "But I think everyone's been asking the wrong question." She picked up a piece of chalk and began writing. Not complex equations, but simple geometric shapes. Everyone assumes this problem is asking us to find x, she continued, drawing circles and triangles on the board. But what if it's actually asking us to find y? Murmurs rippled through the audience. Several professors exchanged glances. This wasn't how mathematical presentations typically began. Dr. Pemberton's confident expression flickered slightly. He hadn't expected Zara to start with foundational questioning rather than computational attempts. The reason traditional approaches fail, Zara explained, drawing connecting lines between her shapes, is because they treat the conjecture like a puzzle with missing pieces. But it's not missing pieces, it's the wrong puzzle entirely. She turned to face the audience directly. Dr. Pemberton, you said this was unsolvable, but you were solving a different problem. It's like trying to find the area of a circle by treating it as a square. Same numbers, wrong shape. The first key line hit its target perfectly. Dr. Pemberton's face flushed red as professors throughout the auditorium began taking notes. Zara returned to the blackboard, her confidence building with each stroke of chalk. Watch what happens when we reframe the question. What followed was 20 minutes of mathematical brilliance that defied every assumption about how complex problems should be approached. Phase 1. The Foundation Reset. Zara demonstrated that the Hartwell Conjecture contained a hidden symmetry that previous researchers had missed. Using simple substitution methods, she showed how the apparent complexity was actually repeated patterns masquerading as unique variables. See this section here? She pointed to her work. Everyone's been treating these as separate calculations, but they're actually the same calculation in different clothes. Dr. Carter from Stanford leaned forward, furiously checking Zara's reasoning. Dr. Mills from MIT pulled out his phone to verify the substitutions. One by one, professors throughout the auditorium began nodding in recognition. Phase 2. The Pattern Recognition. Instead of using advanced calculus like traditional approaches, Zara identified recursive sequences that simplified the entire problem structure. She showed how the conjecture could be broken down into high school algebra combined with pattern recognition. This is why it seemed impossible, she explained, writing her next series of equations. Everyone was using college-level math to solve what's actually a pattern problem, like using a telescope to read a book. The auditorium buzzed with excitement. Phones appeared as professors began photographing the blackboard. The live stream chat exploded with commentary from mathematicians worldwide. Phase 3. The Elegant Solution. Zara's final breakthrough came when she demonstrated the verification steps. Not only had she solved the conjecture, but her method was reproducible by anyone with solid algebra skills. The beautiful thing about truth, she said, stepping back from the completed proof, is that it works the same way every time. Dr. Pemberton stood frozen at his table. His impossible proof, the foundation of his upcoming book, his symposium presentation, his entire recent reputation, lay in ruins on a blackboard covered with a child's clear reasoning. The room erupted. Professors jumped to their feet, rushing toward the stage to examine Zara's work more closely. Camera crews pushed forward. The live stream viewer count hit 120,000. But Zara wasn't finished. She turned to face Dr. Pemberton directly and delivered her second key line. The Hartwell Conjecture isn't hard because it's complex. It's hard because everyone made it complex. Sometimes the most sophisticated minds miss the simplest truths. The silence that followed was deafening. Every person in that auditorium understood they had just witnessed something extraordinary, not just the solution to a famous problem, but a masterclass in thinking differently. Dr. Carter was the first to break the spell. She approached the blackboard with her notebook, checking Zara's work step by step. After 5 minutes of intense verification, she turned to address the room. This is actually correct, she announced, her voice filled with wonder. The methodology is sound. The proof is complete. She solved it. Dr. Mills joined the verification, then Dr. Rodriguez, then professors from Cambridge and Oxford. One by one, the world's leading mathematicians confirmed what the 12-year-old had accomplished. The auditorium exploded in applause. Standing ovation after standing ovation rolled through the crowd. Reporters rushed to file their stories. Social media erupted with hashtag Zara Williams hashtags. But all eyes eventually turned to Dr. Pemberton, who stood motionless at his table, staring at the blackboard that had just destroyed his carefully constructed academic legacy. Zara looked directly at him and delivered her third key line, the one that would silence every doubt. "Dr. Pemberton, would you like to verify my work, or should Dr. Carter handle the official confirmation?" The challenge was perfectly crafted. Refuse and appear petty. Verify and publicly acknowledge his own defeat. Dr. Pemberton approached the blackboard slowly, like a man walking to his own execution. He studied Zara's proof for what felt like hours, but was actually 3 minutes. Finally, in a voice barely above a whisper, he spoke the words that would end his reign of academic arrogance. The methodology appears sound." The room erupted again, but this time it wasn't just mathematical appreciation. It was justice. A 12-year-old janitor's daughter had just proven that brilliance doesn't require credentials and truth doesn't bow to authority. But the biggest shock was still coming. What would happen when the full extent of Dr. Pemberton's deception was revealed? As the applause died down, Dr. Elena Vasquez rose from her seat in the third row. She carried her laptop and wore the expression of someone about to detonate a bomb. "Before we conclude," she announced loudly, "there's something this community needs to see." The room fell silent. Dr. Vasquez connected her laptop to the projection system. Within seconds, a series of emails appeared on the massive screen behind Zara. 14 months ago, Dr. Pemberton discovered the same error that Miss Williams identified, she began. Rather than correcting his work, he chose to bury the evidence. Gasps echoed throughout the auditorium as professors read the projected emails. Dr. Morrison's confirmation of the error, Pemberton's acknowledgement of the problem. Most damning of all, his decision to conceal the truth to protect his book deal. Dr. Pemberton has known for over a year that the Hartwell Conjecture was potentially solvable, Dr. Vasquez continued. He simply couldn't figure out how to solve it himself. The auditorium erupted. Phone cameras captured the projected emails. Live stream viewers watched the scandal unfold in real time. Academic fraud began trending alongside Zara Williams. Dr. Pemberton stood frozen, his face cycling through denial, panic, and resignation. The man who had built his reputation on never being wrong publicly had just been exposed as a deliberate fraud. Dean Richardson stepped forward from the back of the auditorium. "Dr. Pemberton, in light of this evidence, the university requires an immediate public statement." Pemberton approached the microphone like a condemned man. The same stage where he had planned to cement his legacy would now witness its destruction. He stammered, barely audible. "I acknowledge that Miss Williams has successfully solved the Hartwell Conjecture, and that my previous assessment was incomplete." The words hung in the air like a confession. Dr. Vasquez wasn't finished. "Dr. Pemberton, would you also like to acknowledge that you deliberately concealed your knowledge of the error for 14 months while preparing to humiliate a child?" The silence that followed was absolute. In that moment, 1,000 mathematicians and 150,000 online viewers witnessed the complete destruction of academic arrogance and the triumph of truth over reputation. But what would this mean for Zara's future? What happened next would be remembered as one of the most powerful moments in academic history. The entire auditorium rose to their feet. Not polite applause, but thunderous recognition that shook the building. Professors who had dedicated their lives to mathematics stood and cheered for a 12-year-old who had just redefined what was possible. Dr. Carter approached Zara first, extending her hand with genuine respect. "Miss Williams, would you consider joining our graduate program at Stanford when you're ready?" Dr. Mills from MIT followed. "Harvard would be honored to have you as well." One by one, the world's most prestigious universities began extending offers to a janitor's daughter who had solved the unsolvable. The live stream peaked at 200,000 viewers. Number sign Zara Williams exploded across every social platform. Mathematics departments worldwide began resharing the video of her presentation. But the most meaningful moment came when the same security guard who had questioned Jerome's credentials months earlier approached with a tablet. "Miss Williams, would you sign this for my daughter? She wants to be a mathematician now, too." 6 months later, Jerome Williams was promoted to day shift facilities coordinator at triple his previous salary. Zara received a full scholarship to any university mathematics program in the country, with the option to start whenever she felt ready. Dr. Pemberton's book deal was canceled during the live stream. His resignation letter was submitted the following Monday. The academic investigation that followed revealed a pattern of suppressed research and intimidated students spanning years. But perhaps the most important change was harder to measure. Thousands of young people watching that day saw something extraordinary. A girl who looked like them, from a background like theirs, proving that brilliance doesn't announce itself with credentials or pedigree. Today, Zara helps struggling students understand complex mathematics using the same simple explanations that conquered the Hartwell Conjecture. She reminds them that math doesn't care about your address, your parents' jobs, or what people expect from you. The Hartwell Conjecture taught us something beyond mathematics. It taught us that brilliance doesn't announce itself with degrees or credentials. It whispers in quiet moments, in unexpected places, through unexpected people. Sometimes the most profound truths come from those we least expect to teach us. Have you ever dismissed someone's potential before seeing their capability? Share this story if you believe every mind deserves a chance to shine. Because somewhere out there, another brilliant mind is waiting for their moment to change the world.
At Black Voices Uncut, we don't polish away the pain or water down the message. We tell it like it is because the truth deserves nothing less. If today's story spoke to you, click like, join the conversation in the comments, and subscribe so you'll be here for the next Uncut Voice.